Well, good afternoon to you. It's 4:06 now, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up, Mark Harris will join us, lead strategist for the Dave McCormick Senate campaign. They just had a big victory in the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, as the court says, no, you can't count undated ballots, as the left is attempting to steal that Senate race. Mark joins us for his reaction to that breaking news coming up at 4:30. Then 5 o'clock. Bernard Hudson is here, retired CIA official. He'll react to some of President Trump's big picks for his cabinet, including Tulsi Gabbard to become the Director of National Intelligence. And you can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Wasn't that long ago that Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski were claiming that Trump is Hitler and the worst thing that's ever happened to anyone?
When is the time to sound the alarm? When is the time to start saying, well, does this look like Germany in 1932? This is not a reach. I could go back and talk about Nazi Germany, and I do it without any concerns whatsoever. And if people can't start drawing the parallels, well, you're just stupid, or you have your head in the sand, or you're one of them. We still have an electorate, 70 million plus, that will be voting for a man who said he was going to assassinate for treason the chairman of the Joint Chiefs because he didn't support him on January the 6th, who said just in recent days he was going to execute Liz Cheney with a firing squad, 9 guns pointed and shooting at her face. A man who has said that he was going to shut down CBS because he didn't like how they edited an interview. A man who said he was going to be a dictator from day one.
That's false. Yeah, and it's a lie after lie after lie. So imagine the surprise of MSNBC viewers this morning when they encountered this scene.
Over the past week, Joe and I have heard from so many people, from political leaders to regular citizens, deeply dismayed by several of President-elect Trump's cabinet selections, and they are scared. Last Thursday, we expressed our own concerns on this broadcast and even said we would appreciate the opportunity to speak with the president-elect himself. On Friday, we were given the opportunity to do just that. Joe and I went to Maralago to meet personally with President-elect Trump. It was the first time we have seen him in 7 years.
Now, we talked about a lot of issues, including abortion, mass deportation, threats of political retribution against political opponents, and media outlets. We talked about that a good bit. And it's going to come as no surprise to anybody who watches this show, has watched it over the past year or over the past decade, that we didn't see eye to eye on a lot of issues, and we told him so.
What we did agree on was to restart communications.
We're going to restart communications now with Hitler. Joining us now to discuss, Eddie Scarry, columnist at the Federalist, author of Liberal Misery, How the Hateful Left Sucks the Joy Out of Everything and Everyone. Eddie, good to have you back with us, sir.
Hello, so happy to be here.
Are you shocked that Joe and Mika are kissing the ring?
Actually, it's very deja vu, because you might recall this exact thing happened in 2016 with this pair. First during the Republican primary, when they thought that, Trump wasn't going anywhere, and they thought that it hurt Republicans, they were gassing him up. He was dialing into their show every single day. I know this is a really long time ago, but it's like my memory is so clear about this. They were gassing him up every single day, letting him call into their show every single day. They had him on TV. I mean, and obviously he was just really accessible. That was to his benefit.
I saw a clip going around today of Mika petting Trump's hair. Trump was on the air. And Mika was stroking his hair behind his ear in a very familiar way. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, they're friends. And then immediately after he became the nominee, they did a complete 180 on him and tried to tear him down. Then he gets elected, and then what do? The two of them, they go to wasn't Maralago then, because Trump was doing it at Trump Tower in New York. They made the pilgrimage to Trump Tower to kiss the ring, and then they once he's in office, he's elected, they complete 180. They want the access for a minute because they can show they're legitimate, and then they do a complete turnaround. We're seeing the exact same thing again. And I will just say, I will give them for a second, give them a tiny bit of credit, because the bar is so low on this. What really we should have seen the media do if to the extent that anything would be genuine, if you ever wanted to give them some kind of, all right, well, tell me why I should trust you again, it would have to start with, we lied and we knew we were lying and it didn't work. Okay, maybe then we could start to have a conversation. You're not seeing that, but I will say at least we got in that monologue from the two of them. They were both obviously reading from a script, and it must have been really, really painful. But watching her say, the not show trials, just the public trials, all the things that have been said. January 6th, people voted. They had something else more important to them, and it's time for us to do something different. I will say, to some extent, I respect that, or at least I acknowledge it as it's way further. It's way more than anyone else in the media has been willing to do up until this point. But I will just say, again, if you are not going to start with saying, because Brian Stelter at CNN, their media ghoul over there at CNN, he's been doing this, there's a lot of reckoning going on. Okay, if you are not going to start that reckoning with telling your viewers, we lied to you, we knew we were lying, and it didn't work. If you're not going to start there, because that's what happened these last, many years, but especially in the last 2 years, and especially when Kamala Harris became the nominee, because I will just real quick, Vince.
Yeah.
I just want to say this was the lies that we're used to are more like deception. It's more like kind of what they did with inflation, which is they kind of, the way they phrase things like, well, inflation's down, why aren't people feeling it? And then they're not giving you the full context of what's going on there. But this was something else I've never seen before, and I've been covering media for a very long time. This was not that kind of lie for these especially the last 4 months when Kamala became the nominee. This was brazen. They're telling you up is down. They're telling you that the ground doesn't get wet when it rains, and they're telling you that Kamala Harris is popular. That is a whole different version of lie that I have never seen before. And again, if they're not going to start from the gate with any kind of reckoning with, yeah, we lied to you, we knew you were lying, and it didn't work, I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is a morning show on MSNBC that used the same rhetoric that would-be Trump assassins were using, that there's democracies on the ballot and that Donald Trump's a threat to democracy, that he's a fascist. He's like Hitler. This is exactly like Germany in the 30s, you heard Joe Scarborough say a moment ago in that audio. And for as long as I've been aware of it, dorm room philosophers have sat around and asked themselves, hey, would you get into a time machine and go back and kill baby Hitler? Well, here's a real-life example. Would you go to Maralago and meet with Hitler? Because that's what they claimed that they were doing. So here they are meeting with the guy they cast as Hitler for the waning weeks of the election, and they're trying to convince their audience that that's just what journalists do. We have to, open up lines of communication here.
Yeah, it's really I had been pondering this question aloud on Twitter or X for the last 3 months. I had always believed that Trump was likely to win. I didn't know that it was going to be a complete blowout like that. I was pretty confident that he would beat Kamala more than I was confident he was going to beat Biden. But I was not expecting it to be this blowout. But I did keep saying to myself, and also aloud on Twitter, what exactly are the media going to say to their audiences when this is over? And if Trump wins decisively, and I always said if it was a fair election, which it couldn't be. It couldn't possibly be free. They made sure it wasn't going to be free with the lawfare, the assassination stuff, the Hitler, everything that happened, all the lies. Your audience knows them all. It was never going to be fair. But if it could have been fair, he's going to decisively win. And what exactly are they supposed to tell their audiences after that? And I think a lot of them now, and I think that's what's going on with this whole, well, we want to start communication and let's try to understand him. No, what happened is they're executives, and that's why they had to read it from a script. This isn't like a heavily scripted show. Anyone who watches Morning Joe, it's pretty freewheeling and off the cuff, especially with the two hosts, especially with Joe Scarborough, even more so than his slam piece. But for them to have to read it from the script, it was because their executives came to them and said, look, this isn't. We've just lost almost half our audience. Yeah. You're not getting a raise for sure. You might have to take a pay cut, or we're going to have to cancel the show altogether unless we do something completely different. That's why they had to do this. I don't think it's going to work though.
Media, left-wing media is in total chaos right now. As you might expect, their ratings have dropped precipitously since the election. And some of the reactions, some of them are dead enders. They're just holding on to the very end. Here's on The View today, Sunny Hostin, who's awful. She's responding to what Joe and Mika said this morning.
Look, the bottom line is that America needs a free press that is willing to speak truth to power right now, more than ever. And I think that we have to be very clear-eyed when we think about the president-elect and cover the president-elect. And I don't think you need to sit down for 90 minutes at Maralago and kiss his ring to be able to speak truth and to be able to cover a story. So maybe they're not journalists in the true sense. Maybe they're saying that they're opinion journalists. But we have to remember that Trump is the guy who ushered in the era of fake news. He is the guy who ushered in alternative facts. He is the guy who attacked 3 black female journalists.
Oh,
he's the guy that revoked Jim Acosta's press credentials for asking him a question.
Oh, my gosh.
And so I think that this president-elect, I hate to say it, would like nothing more than to have only Fox News cover him, would like nothing more than a state-sponsored media.
Well, then why is he meeting with Joe and Mika? Like, what is she even talking about, Eddie Scarry? Not a single word that came out of her face makes much sense.
Well, I really hate, I used to love The View, and I actually used to watch it, like, in earnest, not, like, ironically or because I had to. I would actually watch the show because I found it interesting. It's so terrible, and I say this in all sincerity. She is the absolute dumbest, worst person, and I hate that they refer to her on legal issues because she's really she watches MSNBC and like just repeats what they say. But this she needs to understand something, and it's this: that the media ran the Democrat campaign this cycle more so than any ever in my lifetime. The media, this is the media's campaign. This wasn't a normal Democrat campaign. This was a media campaign. The Herculean effort of hoisting Kamala Harris, who was a complete joke even among the media in Washington, a complete joke, but to turn her into this sex symbol, this popular person, a stateswoman, and make her president, okay? When voters voted, they voted the media, the Democrats' loss this election is every bit the media's loss. They own that loss. Voters voted against Sunny Hostin. They voted against Morning Joe. So this thing that we've now got to rethink things and talk about it in terms of like she said, well, we need a free press to tell the truth. No, whatever your version and whatever you're talking about the truth, that is not real. And voters said we're not interested.
Right.
We're not interested at all.
Yeah, and what you're hearing from them right now is an attempt to negotiate with you because they know that you have the upper hand. They're pleading with you to still take them seriously. That's what's happening. Eddie Scarry, always good to talk to you, author over at the Federalist and of the book Liberal Misery, How the Hateful Left Sucks Joy Out of Everything and Everyone, especially themselves. Eddie, thank you very much.
Thanks, Vince.
All right, it's 4:20 now.
And for those asking why we would go speak to the president-elect during such fraught times, especially between us, I guess I would ask back, why wouldn't we? 5 years of political warfare has deeply divided Washington and the country. We have been as clear as we know how in expressing our deep concerns about President Trump's actions and words in the coarsening of public debate. But for nearly 80 million Americans, election denialism, public trials, and January 6th were not as important as the issues that moved them to send Donald Trump back to the White House with their vote.
What a goof.
Joe and I realize it's time to do...
Those trials, by the way, and the lack of integrity in our elections, that all motivated people to show up for Trump.
Something different. And that starts with not only talking about Donald Trump, but also talking with him.
Okay. Anyway, President Trump described the meeting with Mika and Joe. What was that like? Trump talked to the Fox News channel today, or Fox News Digital. He did a print interview with them. And he said, quote, "I received a call from Joe Scarborough requesting a meeting for him and Mika. And I agreed that it would be a good thing if such a meeting took place. We met at Maralago on Friday morning at 8 o'clock, he conveyed. He said the meeting was, quote, extremely cordial. Many things were discussed, said President Trump, and I very much appreciated the fact that they wanted to have open communication. In many ways, it's too bad that it wasn't done long ago. Trump added that they, quote, congratulated me on running a great and flawless campaign, one for the history books, which I really believe it was. I love this. I desperately hope that that's like a literal verbatim quote from Joe Scarborough. You ran a, quote, great and flawless campaign, one for the history books. Hilarious. I love that. Which I really believe it was, the president added. But it was also a campaign where I worked long and hard, perhaps longer and harder than any presidential candidate in history. We talked about various cabinet members, both announced and to be announced, the president said. As expected, they liked some very much, but not all. The meeting ended in a very positive manner, and we agreed to speak in the future. I expect this will take place with others in the media, even those that have been extremely hostile. So there's the president. He's saying that this won't be the last of them, that he's going to talk to the hostile media. He's going to have everybody stop by so that they, too, can kiss the ring and try and get back in his good graces. That's apparently the plan. And lefties are furious about all of this. You already heard from Sonny Hostin. MSNBC host Katie Fang. She said normalizing Trump is a bad idea. She attacked her colleagues. I saw Keith Olbermann, former MSNBC host. What is he doing nowadays? That guy's crazy. Have you ever seen him like in a full body photo? He was attacking Joe Scarborough today, but in a full body photo, that is the most pear-shaped human being I've ever seen. He's very fat, but it's just below the camera, which is why he's built for television. 429. Hey, good afternoon to you. 435 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we are making sense of the news. Coming up, 5 o'clock, we'll be joined by Bernard Hudson, retired CIA official. He was the agency's chief of counterterrorism. We'll discuss Tulsi Gabbard becoming the director of national intelligence and so much more. You can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. We have been following the saga in Pennsylvania of Bob Casey and the Democrats' attempt at stealing that election from Dave McCormick, who has won it by a comfortable margin, but so many networks yet to call it. And the Casey campaign has attempted to be counting votes that are undated or illegible. And the court has now twice said, knock it off. In fact, here is a Democrat commissioner just a couple days ago in Bucks County saying, I don't care what the law is. We're going to count the ballots.
We reject all three categories of these ballots.
Your motion is to reject or dismiss the challenges in this category in front of you?
Correct, yep.
Not going to second that, mostly because I think we all know that precedent by a court doesn't matter anymore in this country, and people violate laws anytime they want. So for me, if I violate this law, it's because I want a court to pay attention to it.
That voice, Bucks County Commissioner Diane Ellis Marseglia, also happens to be a Bob Casey donor, saying, I don't care. We'll violate the law anyway. Joining us now to discuss all of this, including the breaking news today, Mark Harris is here. He's lead strategist for the Dave McCormick Senate campaign. Mark, good to have you with us, sir.
Thanks for having me today.
All right, so I saw your tweets on this subject, but the Pennsylvania Supreme Court just ruling in the last hour or so that the McCormick campaign is correct and that these ballots without dates on them should not be counted. Is this race completely over?
I mean, it's been over for days. It's been clear since really 2 days after the election that there was no path to victory for Bob Casey, but he has continued to do everything he can, him and his allies, to try to find unlawful votes. And it really is, it's really unconscionable. In this case, the Supreme Court just ruled today 7-0, and it's a Democratic, it's 5 Democrats on the court to 2 Republicans, ruled 7-0 that this was a material breach. The undated ballots, and they rolled 4-3 to immediately cease any counting. So, big victory for Dave McCormick, big victory for the rule of law. But, there needs to be repercussions for these elected officials who are charged with administering our elections, who apparently feel like the law doesn't apply to them and they can do whatever they want, which is exactly what happened here. Even the Washington Post called them out. So, it's a step in the right direction. Dave is the senator-elect. He is going to win. But certainly it's good to see the Pennsylvania Supreme Court continue to reinforce that the law is the law and counties have to abide by it.
Does this mean that there are no more ballots up for grabs at all?
There's a few. There's about 4,500 votes in Delaware County, which is one of the suburban Philadelphia counties that are yet to be posted. They've been counted and adjudicated, but our understanding is that they are waiting for this legal ruling before they posted their results. So I'm hoping in the next 24 hours the initial counts will all be done, and then we're on to the recount, which is technically mandated under Pennsylvania law. Casey could have opted out of it, but he chose not to, costing the Pennsylvania taxpayers several $1 million, which is unfortunate. But, regardless, recounts do not change the outcome in a situation where we're up tens of thousands of votes. The outcome is not going to change. Dave is going to be the U.S. Senator from Pennsylvania.
Is that the current margin? What's the margin, as you know?
Last I looked about an hour ago, it was 17,400.
Okay.
But, there is still, like I said, a handful of rural counties that still have yet to post, 50 to 100 provisional votes each. And then this last suburban county, Delaware County, which is sitting on about 4,500. But
so that's nowhere close. Some of those votes, of course, maybe a lot of them will be for Dave McCormick. Yeah. In other words, there is no path here for Bob Casey.
There is no. Dave's lead is much larger than the outstanding number of ballots. So we're definitely going to go into the recount up, tens of thousands of votes. And then again, the history of recounts, no U.S. Senate recount since 2000 if you've been up by 500 votes or more, has the outcome changed. So we're up many multiples of that. So, in today's era, it's not going to make a difference. But, this is Bob Casey's prerogative to pursue it. But, it's become clear that him and his allies will pretty much do whatever it takes to try to change the outcome of this election, which is, really unfortunate. I think, people need to be held accountable for this bad behavior.
Yes. So when that Bucks County commissioner, again, her name's Diane Ellis Marseglia, she's a Bob Casey donor, the Free Beacon was reporting this weekend. When she came out last week and said, I don't care if I'm violating the law. If I violate the law, it's because I want a court to pay attention to it. How substantially did your jaw drop when you heard that?
I mean, it dropped to the floor. I think, these are in Pennsylvania, our elections are administered at the county level, and her job is to, she's one of three people, 2 Democrats, 1 Republican. This is a Democrat county in order, who are required to uphold the law. And, there's 67 counties in Pennsylvania, 63 of them did it right. They chose to break the law. And again, that's horrific. That's bad for our country. That's bad for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And I think there has to be repercussions for this sort of malfeasance.
I don't know what those repercussions could amount to, but I think for most people, if you promise to violate the law and then you do it, that you're looking at some serious consequences. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think investigations, whether it's the Pennsylvania Attorney General or others, we have a new Republican AG in PA. Obviously, we're going to have a new Department of Justice here and, at the federal level. But, I think that thorough investigations, likely need to be held. But, from the McCormick side, our goal right now is just to get to the other side, get through this recount and make sure that we fight every day that every legal vote is counted. And we know when that happens, Dave will be the next senator from Pennsylvania.
And it looks like that there are elements of the Democrat Party who are attempting to steal this race from the voters of Pennsylvania. But there are other elements like Chuck Schumer, who's, I think, hasn't he kind of stayed quiet and, in fact, extended a welcome to Dave McCormick in terms of Senate affairs?
There was initially we weren't getting invited. Then Dave was. Look, I think in the state of Pennsylvania, there are plenty of Democrats who understand the score. They understand Bob Casey lost. They're working to, they are playing fair. There's certainly a lot of Democrats who get it. But unfortunately, some of these election officials have chosen not to follow the rule book.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. Okay, so any other developments today that we should be aware of, or just this big one, the Pennsylvania
that's the
Supreme
big one.
Court?
The recounts have to start in some counties have started, but they have to start in every county by this Wednesday, and they have to be completed by the 26th. So on the 27th, we will have final numbers, and again, Dave will be, double officially the senator-elect, but there's no path for Bob Casey. And, just quite frankly, it's sad to see a guy who served for 30 years go out in this fashion.
Yes, it is. It definitely is. And meanwhile, I'm seeing, I think NBC is among a couple of news outlets who have still refused to call this race. But based on this decision today, there really is no other path. Dave McCormick will be the U.S. Senator from Pennsylvania.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you very much. Mark Harris, lead strategist for the Dave McCormick campaign. Good to talk to you today. Congratulations on that victory.
All right, thanks.
There he is, Mark Harris. Thank you to Mark for an assessment of everything going on the ground on the Keystone State. You have a Supreme Court in Pennsylvania, as we all well know, controlled by Democrats. They're unanimously saying that you can't be counting these ballots. It is a complete violation of the law. So a good victory for election integrity today. I saw Michael Whatley, the chairman of the RNC, tweeting about that, expressing his pleasure that it went the correct way. One thing here, Michael Whatley, speaking of that, he was speaking to Reagan Reese of the Daily Caller today, and she writes, Republican National Committee Chairman Michael Whatley said the party is exploring whether Bucks County commissioners can be criminally prosecuted after they openly admitted to illegally counting ballots in the Senate race between both Casey and McCormick. And she recaps in her reporting today some of that audio I just played for you from Diane Ellis Marseglia, the Bucks County commissioner. Whatley told the Daily Caller that the party and its lawyers are exploring whether Ellis Marseglia could be criminally prosecuted for comments in the Thursday meeting. Quote, we certainly are exploring that right now, and we will pursue this to the fullest extent that we can, Whatley told the Daily Caller during a Monday press call. We have been very clear that we are going to prosecute to the fullest extent of the law folks that are not following the law, that are trying to cheat in these elections. We're going to pursue every legal means that we can against these officials for improperly saying that they're going to count these ballots, he added today during that press call. CNN's Jake Tapper asked John Fetterman about this in the last few days, about Bucks County flagrantly violating the state law. Here's how that went.
What's your take? What's your response to that Democratic official deliberately announcing that they're going to defy court orders and count these provisional ballots?
Well, again, I'm not going to chase every kinds of quotes, things like that, because I think you just pointed out that it refers to about 115 ballots, and that's not going to have an impact on this race at this point.
If they are ineligible to be counted and there's a court order and it's illegal, then the answer is she shouldn't have said that, and she should be held accountable for doing that, is the answer. But John Fetterman says, it doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter that much. So that's the update in Pennsylvania, where they've been attempting to steal the election. So far, no good for them. Mark is calling in from Landover Hills here on line 4. Hello, Mark. You are on the Vince Coglianese Show. Hello.
Top of the day to you, Vince.
Hey there.
Hey, buddy. Real quick. Julie this morning and Larry had your man and my man, Joe DeGenevo, on there.
Yeah.
And Joe is a pretty sharp cookie. You know this. You have him on your show, Vince.
I love Joe.
He knows the law, and he's got the integrity and the reputation to back it up. You know this, Vince.
I know this.
And he said, without a doubt, man, it's a felony what that lady did, and she should be prosecuted, Vince.
Well, if it's good enough for Joe DeGenevo, it's good enough for me, and it's a good reminder that if you're interested in hearing Joe during his regular Monday appearance on O'Connor and Company, you can do it on their podcast. They have a podcast. And I've got to go back to the podcast archive and listen. I was listening this morning. I didn't hear the Joe DeGenevo interview, and now I will, thanks to your excellent recommendation, Mark.
Hey, Vince, always anything for you, buddy. You're one of the best guys on radio. That's why I enjoy listening to you, Vince, and give you all the information I can, because
Mark,
I know you're using your best ability.
Oh, man, you're the best. Thanks, Mark. I appreciate that call. There's Mark, Landover Hills, great guy, great American, pointing to the fact that Joe. Look, if Joe is saying that we can go after this lady and prosecute her, then let's do it, baby. Throw the book at her. Don't you think somebody has to learn a lesson here? Somebody has to learn a lesson here. How many times can they step all over the rights of American citizens without consequences? Isn't that one of the things that drives you the craziest? Probably right behind making your family poorer and opening your country's borders. It's just the never-ending parade of abuses. At some point, somebody has to be held accountable. You think they can take care of Anthony Fauci coming up? And I mean for any violations of the law. I'm not asking them to invent a thing. I'm not asking that at all. That's the way the left operates. They invent crimes for people. No, I'm talking about a real investigation into Anthony Fauci, into his financial interests, into how COVID was birthed in a lab in Wuhan with funding that Fauci was trying to keep from the view of the American people. Anything like that? Is RFK going to have any capacity to share that as the head of HHS? Is the new attorney general going to be able to launch an investigation into this subject? Matt Gaetz. Be good to get to the bottom of some of this, don't you think? For America, that would be really nice. Really nice. Let's see. Let me take a call from Marco calling in from Springfield now on line 2. Hello, Marco. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, Vince. Thanks for taking my call. Hey, President Trump meeting with Mika and Joe the Scarborough. I'm totally against that. Those people should be taken off the air. As a matter of fact, MSLSD should be taken off the air completely. I can't believe he met with them. I mean, who's next? Rachel Madclown, Sonny Hoskins, Whoopi. All those stations need a public apology on air to say, hey, this is what we said. We were lying, and we take back everything we said. We were just being propagandists.
Something? Trump should maybe make that a predicate to allowing anybody to meet with him. Like, hey, if you were a part of the lying left-wing media, you need to make a public apology first, and then I will consider whether or not maybe we'll have a meeting together. Although, Marco, I've been thinking about this, and I can see why you have that thought, which is that, look at these guys. They crapped all over him. They fed into every crazy left-wing conspiracy theory, and then they get the privilege of having an opportunity to meet with the former and now future president of the United States. And Patui, you spit at that idea. I totally understand that, although it is funny. I love how funny it is that they got a chance to meet with them, and then they have to go on television and explain to their audience that they met with the guy that they said was Hitler. And Trump comes out looking like a gentleman, like a guy who's just above it all, like a total statesman. They come out looking like the clowns that they are. And so it's hard for me to dislike that arrangement. I'm kind of enjoying it, Marco.
I'm enjoying it, too, and I think they're just pulling a CYA because I think they know that their jobs are going to be in jeopardy. Whoopi, on top of accusing that bakery.
Oh, yeah.
I can't understand how anybody could take that show seriously. Sonny Hoskins, come on. She's a racist. She's an ignoramus. And, I mean, I've never seen such a joke. I mean, who watches that show is my first question.
I know. I know. It's too crazy. It's way too crazy. Thank you, Marco. A lot of common sense coming out of Marco today. Let me get John and McLean in here, line 1. Hello, John. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
How are you today?
I'm doing good, John.
I think the person in charge ultimately in Pennsylvania is the Governor Shapiro. He's allowed, and the Attorney General has allowed this to go through. In the public's eye, these people holding back the votes, this is why you can't have these votes mailed in these absentee ballots. Mm-hmm. There has to be direct vote. This is a stain on Mr. Shapiro, period.
Yeah, Josh Shapiro. How pathetic has he been through this saga as the Democrats looking to steal this race?
The star of the future Democrats. It's a huge stain on him, and I hope that people see that he is not guiding his state to the proper laws.
Yes.
To the proper laws.
John, thank you. Excellent point. Yeah, he deserves to wear the shame of this as a Democrat-led Supreme Court unanimously strikes down the left's attempt to steal the Senate race in Pennsylvania today. And Josh Shapiro, nowhere to be found. Oh, if only he was the running mate, Kamala would have won. Yeah, sure. Yeah, with that kind of bravery? Yeah. I don't think so. All right, coming up, we will be chatting with Bernard Hudson, retired CIA official. We'll get his take on all the big national security jobs in the incoming Trump administration.